Hello, welcome into WTOL 11's Juneteenth special. I'm Tatiana Cash. Thanks so much for joining us. Now, this marks 159 years of commemorating the official end of slavery in Texas on June 19th, 1865. Now, it happened 2 years after Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, which happened actually in 1863. But not every slave was freed when under Confederacy control. So for those in Texas, freedom would have to come years later.
On June the 19th, 1865, a Union general by the name of Gordon Granger rode into Galveston with 2,000 Union troops, and he issued General Order Number 3. And General Order Number 3, in essence, ended slavery in Texas, and the 250,000 individuals of African-American descent who were formerly enslaved were now freed people. And in that executive order of 1865, he also specified that these individuals had equality of personal equality, as well as equality of property. And that, for me, has a very strong impact on why we not just African Americans, but Americans should celebrate Juneteenth.
So although they got the news of freedom, the first celebration of Juneteenth didn't take place until the following year on June 19th of 1866, which is also known as Emancipation Day or Freedom Day. They celebrated by holding prayer services, music and food similar to events of today, and red was the prominent color in observation, so things like hibiscus tea, red rice and beans were on display. Ooh, yum. And some would even say it's where red velvet cake was first established. In the midst of the celebration, though, there is this echo. Are Black people actually free?
When I think of are we truly free, I have to say that we have to constantly fight for freedom, right? Freedom is as Malcolm X said, is never given. You know, freedom is not free. If you think about we're celebrating the 80th anniversary of D-Day, and one of the former soldiers who's in his maybe it's his almost 100, he said that he made that statement, freedom is not free. And so you have to constantly fight for it, because we've seen over the history in America that we have moved forward, and then we've moved back. There's a forward movement, and then there's a retrenchment. And so you cannot sit on your laurels when in regards to freedom, because freedom is a constant fight in this society.
One professor says to be free is to have the right to just be, or to challenge the status quo or the system. And not only that, it's to celebrate the freedom of Black people is not just a Black thing. Again, as she had mentioned earlier, it's an American thing.
The freedom of Black people has paved the way for the freedom of so many people, ethnic groups in America. From voting to changes in the housing and education. So all the Black bodies on the line in the cause of freedom and justice and equality. It was done, yes, for the Black community, but it opened the door for so many other groups to come along. And here's the other thing: a lot of the other groups patterned themselves after the Black movement.
The ultimate freedom for many Blacks in this country in the 1800s was escaping bondage. So in honor of Juneteenth, the Clyde Museum is going to honor Peter Points, who's a man who escaped slavery in 1848 from Kentucky. Now, curator Gene Smith says Points made his way north along the Underground Railroad through Ohio and first settled in Sandusky in 1849. But when the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 was enacted, he had to move north more to Windsor, Ontario, Canada, and became a farmer. Sometime in the 1850s, he eventually buys his freedom from his former slave master in Kentucky. Then in the 1860s, he moved to Clyde.
We want to honor him because he was a man of great courage, great bravery, determination, and resilience. And a life like that should not be forgotten. You should be remembered. Everyone should be remembered. But a story like that, a person like that especially, that story needs to be told.
You can watch the Remembrance Headstone ceremony at McPherson Cemetery in Clyde on June 19th at 11 a.m. This year, the Frederick Douglass Community Center marks 105 years of service, and it filled the need for social and recreational opportunities for Black youths here in Toledo. The late Albertus Brown, a lawyer and civil rights leader, spearheaded a small group of people to raise money, and in 1919, the Frederick Douglass Community Association was founded. Now, a board member tells us this center has a big impact not only on the community, but also on his life.
Bringing community back together is big on neighborhoods. I always tell people, man, they always talk about, oh, it's bad here and it's bad there. It was just this being a beacon in the neighborhood, which it always has been. It's been a beacon for me. I've been around here since about, 7, 8 years old. I worked here from the time I was 14 to I was 17 years old. So it's been, really big. We have a lot of community outreach.
Executive Director Reggie Williams touts the Frederick Douglass Center is a safe space where Blacks can fellowship, engage, strategize, and enjoy activities. The center serves between 8,000 to 10,000 every year. And with all the outreach, Williams says it's important to remember the person who inspired the epicenter of hope and empowerment.
It's phenomenal for a person to come from slavery and then to be educated and then to find his way to the North and then to be in the cabinet of our president, of Lincoln, and also to create a newspaper, North Star, and want to be an abolitionist and to work with those to free slaves and to bring about a change to those in that reformation of thought. For those to understand what this country is founded on and what it was doing to those persons who were enslaved. And so for Frederick Douglass to have a profound effect and imprint and impact on our nation and our government, and also just with his readings and his books, is just a great legacy to be able to be in a building or an association named after him. And so as a man of color, it is just relatively important to understand that, we're standing in greatness and we're living proof that we can bring change when we come together and unite for a cause.
We also asked what's next, and they tell us the next 105 years will be to maintain the momentum and hand off the legacy in good standing. Now, during times like this, Juneteenth or Black History Month, you're probably going to hear a lot about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and he's one of the most popular civil rights leaders, and rightfully so. But there are many others who had the same goals as MLK, and some of them are doing the work right here in our area. Andre Norrells joins us in studio with more on a Toledo pastor whose efforts move the needle forward locally. Tell us about it.
Yeah, Tatiana, late Toledoan I.J. Johnson is known for being a reverend in the area, but while growing up in Alabama, he knew MLK. We caught up with his son to learn more about what I.J. meant to Toledo.
He was a good man, and he tried to help all he could.
Curly Johnson is I.J.'s son. He now leads the church his father used to pastor, but before his father came to Toledo, he was born and raised in Troy, Alabama.
He used to tell us a lot when I was young about his days in Alabama, and he was proud of the civil rights movement.
Fast forward to 1967.
Martin Luther King Jr. Came to Toledo, and he spoke at Scott High School.
An event that's plastered on the church's walls.
These men of God who tried to help somebody.
With his dad, I.J., pictured with Dr. King.
He talked about how the civil rights movement was a movement for equality and dignity and respect.
Something former Toledo Mayor Cardi Finkbeiner can attest to.
I.J. Johnson was as close to me as any minister in this community has ever been. I was in his home many times.
Finkbeiner says I.J. was the type of person who would help people who needed it. His son saying his dad's big goal was to help people in the community get jobs.
I can't stress that enough. There were many people who worked for many years at different jobs that they never would have gotten had it not been for Pastor going knocking on doors.
He was ready to put all of his influence and his heart and soul behind that individual or that cause where there was a need.
This reaching adults and kids in Toledo. Ohio State Representative Eldrin Rogers says Johnson was a big part of his life. He went to men's meetings I.J. would lead.
Reverend Johnson would give us a word about God, and one of the things that I remember, he said, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, the golden rule. And that just stuck with me, and he just captured my attention.
He still comes to this church to this day, but even for a guy who did so much for others, Johnson had his own struggles. His original church on Detroit Avenue burned to the ground in 2014.
He was crushed. You know, I mean, we're not, it's not about the building, it was about his memories.
Something IJ told WTOL 11 back in 2014.
The church wasn't burned, the building was burned. The church still standing, the church is here today.
But the church rebuilt here on Holland-Sylvania. He hopes during this time of celebrating Juneteenth, people remember how hard others fought for civil rights and the right to vote.
We're squandering some of the gains that men like Martin Luther King died for. People like my dad lived for. Other women have given their life for us to have an opportunity to say yes or no.
And to do as his dad did, help people.
If you leave this life and you don't help anybody, that's a life wasted.
Now, IJ died back in 2018. That's when Curley took over as head pastor. Church service is every Sunday at 10:45 a.m. at St. Mark's on Holland-Sylvania. Reporting in studio, Andre Knowles, WTOL 11.
All right, thanks, Andre. Now, it's been 70 years since Brown versus Board of Education. The case overturned the separate but equal policy in schools, which is an important step in the fight to end racial discrimination. Now, since the decision, it took several decades for schools to fully integrate. But according to philosophy educator and mental health therapist Dr. Anthony Boyer, it came at a price.
We saw several problems with that. Number one, there were between 35,000 to 40,000 African-American teachers who were educating our students. They lost their employment because white administrators did not want to integrate them into the school systems. Quality of resources still were not being distributed equally 4 decades later. And today, we have in some urban areas, students are 95 to 90% segregated, which you're correct.
All right, so where does Toledo Public Schools stand as we reflect on the impact of Brown versus the Board of Education?
Well, I think the charter schools played a big role in the continuing segregation of students because a lot of the charter schools are in the black communities and they've taken away from the public schools a lot of their students. In terms of the equity and resources, I think that per pupil, they're spending about the same.
The University of Toledo notes Toledo Board of Education did not deliberately integrate its schools in the 1960s. Instead, the board maintained segregated schools either by limiting the choice of students or by making no effort to reverse the effects of segregation, or both. Dr. Boyer was part of a small group of 5th grade students to integrate a South Toledo school back in 1967. And although he doesn't recall the school, he says despite the racial climate, he was treated well by teachers and staff. So how are the Topeka schools faring years after the Supreme Court decision? CBS News is catching up with one woman who's now running the district.
I heard you had a birthday.
Home-delivered birthday gifts and cake aren't generally part of a school curriculum.
Good morning.
But Topeka School Superintendent Tiffany Anderson rarely sticks to a lesson plan when there's a child in need.
If we don't do it, who will?
The district at the center of the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education ruling outlawing racial segregation in schools.
In the past, they have tried doing separate but equal, but
is now helmed by its first black female superintendent.
70 years later, do you live with the burden of their hope and dreams?
I think 70 years later, I live with the privilege to help their hopes and dreams come to life. I'm standing on their shoulders.
High school graduation rates have skyrocketed from near 70 to 91% during her 8-year tenure. She's established morale-boosting programs like graduation ceremonies for students in the nearby state correctional facility.
So have faith that you will make it through and be out of this space.
In a district where almost half of students qualify for subsidized lunch, she put washers and dryers in schools. as well as food and clothing pantries.
It's not really hard to get people on board when they know that you care and they know they can be part of something pretty incredible and transformational.
Why isn't it happening somewhere else?
Sometimes fear. Fear can make you choose not to accept other people. Fear can shut down systems in a way like nothing else can.
The historic district is transforming once again, this time opening its doors to refugees and migrants.
Just because somebody doesn't speak English doesn't mean they're less valuable to a community.
Students from more than 40 countries have enrolled.
We have clothing, we have...
Director of Cultural Innovation, Pilar Mejia, welcomes each one.
Without this program, where do you think some of these families would be right now?
It would be tragic. They might end up in either not being able to come or stay in situations in their countries that are dire.
Is there any connection that you can draw there between what's happening now with these kids and the situation at the time?
The connection is they all are looking for a better and brighter future. They're all hoping for something better for their lives. We're dealing with families who want more for their children.
It's that better, brighter future that was fought over 70 years ago in the schools of Topeka. Janet Shamlian, CBS News, Topeka, Kansas.
Definitely makes you smile. Now, more than 77 years after Jackie Robinson broke the baseball color barrier, Major League Baseball is doing the same for its record books. Now the MLB began incorporating the statistics of former Negro League players, rewinding some of the game's historic records. CBS News has the latest.
Cobb takes his cut. Major League Baseball has a new all-time batting champ, Josh Gibson, who spent 14 years playing in the Negro Leagues. Gibson, a legendary catcher who played for the Homestead Grays and Pittsburgh Crawfords, is now MLB's leader in batting average and slugging percentage, surpassing baseball icons Ty Cobb and Babe Ruth.
He may have been the greatest power hitter and hitter for average in MLB history.
John Thorne chaired the committee that integrated statistics into MLB's official records. The committee looked at more than 2,300 players from the Negro Leagues during 1920 to 1948 in an effort to, quote, correct a long overdue oversight.
The most interesting part of this is to remove these 7 Negro Leagues from the shadowland of baseball history and to put them on an equal footing with their white peers.
Until Jackie Robinson broke the MLB's color barrier in 1947, he played in the Negro Leagues. His departure led to other star players like Satchel Paige and Larry Doby following suit, eventually causing the league's demise.
Is this move bigger than baseball?
This move is bigger than baseball. It opens up the eyes to what America was and now what America can be. It makes baseball a better version of itself.
Jerika Duncan, CBS News, Washington.
Negro League Baseball, as far as Toledo teams, is quite limited, according to Toledo Mud Hens historian John Huseman. In 1923, Toledo Tigers only played a handful of games here. In 1945, Toledo Clubs was a minor league team and played just a few games. Huseman says our claim to fame as far as hometown Negro League teams is the 1939 Toledo Crawfords. It was and is the only bona fide major league team in Toledo and played a full year here. All 3 teams played at Swain Field on Monroe in Detroit before it was demolished in 1955. A historical marker stands at the corner of Collingwood and Dorr in central Toledo, honoring the Tigers, Cubs, and Crawfords. Now, did you know a pair of Hall of Fame players suited up and played right here in the Glass City? Oscar McKinley and Charleston was elected as a center fielder, first baseman, and even manager back in 1976. He managed and played first base for 1939 Toledo Crawfords and is known as one of the best all-around players in Negro League history, according to historians. The other is Norman Turkey Stearns. He was elected the Hall in 2000 as center fielder as well. Stearns captained the 1945 Toledo Club in United States Baseball League, and he was a prolific home run hitter and led the National League in round trippers 6 times in Detroit Stars. A local historian says adding these stats to the MLB does not take away from other legacy players.
There's some differences in the number of games played But if we look at averages, the black players are absolutely outstanding. And let's just take one. Let's talk about batting averages. By combining the Negro League data as we have it, as we compare those numbers, combine those numbers, Josh Gibson would be the best all-time leader in batting average among all players. Oscar Charleston, by the way, would be third on that list. So they compare very favorably, and I, for one, don't think it does anything to diminish the record of the white players. I think Ty Cobb was still Ty Cobb, although he's not number one on the hit list anymore.
A Sylvania man is using a unique art form to teach others about the history of the Negro Leagues. Steve Iwanek got a chance to learn more about him and your life here in studio. Now, looks like these pieces are definitely home runs, Steve.
Yeah, I would not argue with that, Tatiana. Tom Runnels, some of us here in Toledo may remember that name. He's a former Major League player and a coach turned artist who is using this simple baseball and turning it into Grand Slam portraits.
That's not painting. That's all leather, old baseballs put together like a collage.
Stitching history, one face at a time.
I am really interested in the Negro Leagues and those players that kind of paved the way for us to be able to play the game.
Tom Runnels spent over 40 years playing and coaching baseball. He got his start here in Toledo, managing the Mud Hens before hitting the majors. But after his retirement in 2017, he now enjoys a hobby that seems out of left field.
One of the ways that I really thought was a cool way of doing things was to use old baseballs, refurbished baseballs. So when people throw away the baseballs, I'll take them, I'll skin them, I'll use the seams, and I'll make logos, numbers, and now I'm working on portraits.
Of faces of America's pastime, legends of the diamond, Hank Aaron, Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson. Not leaving anyone on the bench though, everyone getting in the game.
You've got guys like Monty Irvin, Hank Thompson, Cool Papa Bell, Turkey Stearns that played in Toledo and in Detroit. You know, guys like that are not common names, but it gave me an opportunity to, one, research and also share with the public.
Making Grand Slam designs, each one telling a story, then knocking them out of his park and sharing with others.
I do sell them. The proceeds usually go to the police athletic leagues or other youth programs around town, and it gives me another way to give back to our own community.
Turning a double play with funds and learning, teaching others the game, and keeping it fun all the time.
Just an education for all of us, including myself, and I'm learning every day, and I'll continue to learn until I pass away, I think, but it just is, it's really a fun hobby for me.
Now, Runnels says it can range from a few days to a few months to complete all of his pieces, and the collection you saw there was on display at the Fuller Art House in downtown Sylvania. Reporting in studio, Steve Iwanek, WTOL 11.
Steve, you knocked that out the park. Go ahead. All right. Now, with all this talk about Juneteenth, let's not forget about Father's Day, also in June. It became a national holiday in 1972, and while data often shows black fathers in bad lighting, Pathway Incorporated, which runs Brothers United, says locally it's challenging that black father myth.
We found out from doing a survey just here in Toledo that 80% of our dads, of our black dads, signed a birth certificate. Well, what they think is a birth certificate really is a child support affidavit. But the fact that black dads are signing that child support affidavit at birth says that they do care, that they're there, that they want to be present, and the fact that they think it's a birth certificate, right? So they know that it's their right, and so their child's name and all of those things. And so we know that that black fathers in Lucas County are also co-parenting very well from data that we see that says that black fathers, when they're taking education, they tend to do better. That doesn't always mean that those co-parents stay together in a romantic relationship, but what it does mean is that that dad learns skills and strengths so that he can continue to co-parent and work alongside his co-parent to raise their children.
According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, 2013's national health statistics report 70% of black fathers who live with their children are more likely to have bathed, dressed, changed, or helped their child with the toilet every day compared to their white or Hispanic counterparts. And those black dads were also more likely to have eaten a meal with their kids. Take 25-year-old Adonis Irish. He's an involved father of 7-month-old and an 8- and 2-year-old. And Irish tells us it's a learning process. This dad thing he does, and he didn't really have, a dad in his life. But one thing he does know, he will be there for his children the right way. He credits Brothers United for helping him become a better dad.
Just all the resources and information they provide. I could say off the top of my head, I learned one thing going through group with Brothers United is that a dad usually is the one that's more playful with kids. And, just hearing that made me kind of, want to be more playful with my kids, even if I already was, It was just like, dang, that might be true. Like, I do see myself, trying to make my kids laugh or tickling them or things like that, just trying to find ways to keep a smile on their face. And just the resources they provide, like diapers, wipes. Christmas time, they help with Christmas presents, things like that.
Look at that face. Now, Juneteenth is all about celebrating freedom. So, of course, we asked what it means to Black fathers as well.
Freedom, I think, for Black fathers looks like them having the same rights, the same advantages, the same that other fathers have. For them not to be disproportionately underrepresented or sent to prison, or when a father goes to get custody of his kids, or maybe there's a child welfare case, it looks like he can go into court and not have to prove who he is. It looks like if a Black dad shows up at school, it's okay for him to be at the school, and there doesn't always have to be a problem. Freedom looks like, I think, for Black fathers, children that are well in our community, in their home and in our community.
I feel like it's important that fathers know that they are just as important as mothers are. Not a lot of people give fathers their flowers for the things they do. Sometimes people don't get congratulated on things, even if it is something that you're supposed to do. But at the same time, I feel like fathers deserve more recognition for sure.
All right, now as we celebrate 159 years of freedom, historians say not only should we reflect on the steps towards liberty, but also the forces continuing to undermine it. That'll do it here for WTOL 11's Juneteenth special. I'm Tatiana Cash. Have a wonderful day.